The Queen of Granada, by M. Riff. Chapter 172, The Crown. They looked at some marble columns that marked the boundary between the garden and the terrace, and high up, with arches between them, supported the roof. Soon they stood on the terrace and were captivated by the sight of a stone table, with artistic carvings, in the middle, surrounded by 4 wooden benches. Pointing to the silk-embroidered cushions on the benches, Rita remarked, "The cushion cover looks faded." Rosen glanced at them and replied, "That's not surprising, considering they've been standing here for over 500 years. She gently ran her hand over one of the cushions and continued, "These are made of real silk, otherwise, they'd have fallen apart by now. The embroidery still looks incredibly fresh, as if it were done just yesterday." Rita pointed at an elegant crown displayed in the middle of the table, adorned with precious gemstones, and asked, "Do you think it's authentic?" Rosen couldn't take her eyes off the large drop-shaped blue sapphire in the crown. "Yes, I believe it is," she answered. She glanced at the other objects on the table and added, "They've left a teapot and cups as if they'd return to clean up in a moment." She then focused on the crown again and said, "It's as though the Queen of Granada was sitting here when she received the devastating news about evacuating the Alhambra." They decided to peer through the windows of the house. Rita pressed her nose against the glass and asked Rosen, "Should we go inside?" Rosen nodded, saying, "Absolutely." The large windows featured colorful glass mosaics between marble columns and under a high arch that connected the 2 columns above. The door was incorporated into one of these windows. Rosen pushed it and noted, "It doesn't seem to be locked, but the rusty hinges are stuck." Rita cast a determined look at the door and said, "Let me give it a try." She grabbed the handle and with a strong shove with her shoulder forced the hinges to give way. They entered, and the place smelled exactly like one of the spice shops in the bazaar. It was arranged similarly, with shelves lining the walls reaching up to the high ceiling. Countless small and medium-sized glass bottles filled with dried plants, flowers, and roots were neatly displayed on the shelves. Some large bottles and jars containing oil extracts were placed on the floor, supported by a wooden beam structure. Rosen was intrigued by a fireplace and a peculiar large bottle hanging above it. She followed the winding glass tubes that connected to other glass bottles in a basin. Rita was surprised that after all these years, the basin still had water in it. It seemed as if someone had recently used this setup. She thought she could smell the faint scent of rose water in the air. Rosen, although she had a clear idea of what it was, asked Rita, as a teacher might ask her student, "What do you think that is?" Rita examined it closely. It reminded her of a setup the boys at school used to assemble whenever they wanted to brew some homemade booze. She replied, "I think it's a distillation plant."